If you're an e-commerce brand that runs a subscription-based offering and you're trying to scale up to 9 figures, then there's really only three strategies and levers that you can pull. You need to get more people to subscribe, you need to get them to stick around for longer, and you need to get them to spend more. In simple terms, this means increasing your subscription take rate, reducing churn, and increasing your average order value. And the best brands, the fastest growing in the world, are pulling all three simultaneously. Now, I'll let you in on a secret. Too many people hire email and SMS agencies and they think they can scale their retention programs and subscription brands. This is a massive mistake because retention is not about sending emails to people, especially for subscription-based brands. You need to do a myriad of tactics. You need to go into the portal directly. You need to optimize the buy box on the website. Yes, you need to do some email specific stuff as well as other retention channels like SMS and direct mail. But if you're relying on email marketing alone, you are missing out on a massive amount of incremental revenue. And if anything, you might actually be destroying the lifetime value. And I'll show you why if you stick around to watch this video. So the best brands in the world, they're not tackling one of these or the other. They're using all three levers and pulling different tactics and strategies simultaneously to result in crazy compound growth. I'm going to show you exactly the playbook that we run with all our clients at Magnet Monster with our dedicated subscription growth service. And I'll not just show you the email specific strategies, I'll also show you things that you can do on the buy box to get more people to subscribe versus purchase one time, as well as how to reduce churn in the back end through things like cancellation flows and increase the average order value through upcoming order emails. So there's lots of juicy stuff that you want to stick around for. As I said, the best brands in the world pull all three levers simultaneously. And today I'll show you the exact growth formula that you can follow to scale your subscription-based brands as well.
Okay guys, step inside my office once again. Now, before we actually talk about the three levers that you can pull to scale your monthly recurring revenue for your subscription brand, I first want to talk about a couple of key points and why it's so important that you should be focusing on growing the amount of subscribers you have, especially if you have a one-time purchase option for your brand, or maybe you have a CPG brand and you're thinking about implementing subscriptions. I'm going to start off by showing you a powerful piece of data that should really shift your whole thinking on how you approach growing your subscription-based business. So obviously this is just one data set, but this is something that I've seen across dozens and dozens of brands. And if you look at all the big subscription software like Recharge and others, they pretty much have came to the same consensus that a subscriber on average is worth anywhere from 2.5 to 3 times the lifetime value as a one-time purchaser. Now, obviously, it's not an apples to apples comparison. If you do drive more people onto a subscription, the likelihood is if you're using paid ads, then your acquisition costs might go up. So there is some nuance to it. But overall, I think we can all agree when you see data points like this, that most of the time it just makes sense to try and get people to opt in to the subscription because it's more profitable, there's a higher LTV, and usually it can justify that increased customer acquisition cost. So always try, in my honest opinion, to get as many people as possible to subscribe. That's the first key point of data. Subscribers have anywhere from a 2 to 3 times higher LTV on average than a one-time purchaser. Now, secondly, because we're going to talk about increasing average order value, and we're also going to talk quite a lot in this video about churn, you will hear the notion that you should never email your active subscribers. In fact, somewhere on the screen here, I've recorded a video specifically around this topic, which you should check out. Big mistake. Now, what you're looking at on the screen here is a typical retention curve for a D2C brand. And even if you toggle by order number, what you generally see for most subscription-based businesses is the majority of the churn, let's say 70% give or take, happens within the first 3 months or 3 orders. And that's quite logical when you think about it. That is because the customer is building a ritual, they're building a habit, they're not necessarily used to the product. So during this period of time, a lot of the churn will happen when someone doesn't stick to the original reason that they purchased the product. For whatever reason, maybe they didn't get results, they didn't like it, But ultimately, you need to be more sensitive about how you're communicating with your subscribers during this period. But if you look at what happens after month free or order free on this chart, you will see that the churn stabilizes and most of these customers become fair game to start increasing things like the cross sell communications, upsells to increase that average order value. So it's a big mistake to just assume that you can never communicate with your active subscribers. What will be at the end of the day. And if someone's been billed 3 times already, then they already know they have an active subscription. You don't need to trick them or dupe them into continuing. They already know the billing's coming up. So it's fair game to start trying to upsell these people over time. Just bear that in mind. So with that being said, let us first go on to how to improve your subscription take rate, which is the first growth lever that we discussed in the introduction. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is increase our subscription take rates. This is the percentage of people who opt for a subscription on the first purchase versus a one-time purchase for the reasons that we just discussed previously. A few quick call outs that we're going to mention in this buy box optimization section. Why start with the buy box? Because it's the obvious starting point, and this is what's going to determine the amount of people who obviously subscribe versus purchase one time. This is where the decision ultimately happens. So you need to be relentlessly focused on optimizing this to make subscriptions the default choice. And if we look at this example here from Pet Lab Co, that's exactly what it does. And I'm going to walk you through a few of the ways it does this. The first thing you would obviously want to do is just default to the subscribe and save option here. So if you toggle to the one-time purchase here, this just reduces the amount of thinking the customer actually has to do. It makes it the no-brainer, obvious choice. Some of the cool things that they do specifically on this buy box page, you can see here the points that are listed underneath. So highlighting it's able to be cancelled at any time. This is obviously a lot of trepidation that customers have with subscriptions. So that's always a critical one that you'll want to include on the buy box, is making sure the customers know they have the flexibility to opt out at any specific time, as well as pause or adjust their subscription. Look specifically at this part here on the best value for free tubs. I really like this. Now, another quick hack that you can do, not just to increase the subscription take rates, but also to sell more subscription and juice the LTV up front, is to sell a higher quantity of the subscription. So like a quarterly subscription. This is very powerful because not only does it obviously increase cash flow into the business, you have more margin to give away, and you increase the commitment from the customer. So a lot of the time with subscription-based services and products, you actually need to use the product for a period of time before you get results. So by framing the benefit around being accountable and being consistent with building some habits, this allows you to sell even more. And obviously you can give the customer some type of incentive. Another super cool thing here, you can see they've broken down the price per serving per day. This is really, really powerful because obviously if you look at the total gross price, it's $30, but if you break it down to $1 per day, it becomes much more affordable. And again, versus a one-time purchase, you can see here, this is just making the subscription offer a no-brainer. So there's so many cool things going on specifically within this, but just to highlight some of the key features, it's making it the default option. So you don't have to think about purchasing one time. You are holding the customer accountable, making sure that they're aware they can get better results by purchasing on subscription. And especially if you have a further description on the page that you need to take it for a period of time. You're breaking it down per serving. So it's again, framing and anchoring it to how much value the customer's getting. And critically, you're letting the customer know they have the power to cancel that subscription at any time. This is always one of the reasons that people cancel subscriptions, is because they're not communicated with when they subscribe, and it leads to churn. It's like a dark pattern that you consistently see with people trying to trick customers into subscribing. So be transparent up front, or what you will see downstream of this is that a lot of customers will just go and cancel their subscription immediately after subscribing to gamify it. It's better to be upfront and transparent from the very beginning of the customer journey That way you can build a long-term habit. Another call out here before we move on, we're sort of skipping ahead a little bit, but you can see this ability to add extras to your subscription. Obviously, you can do this with one-time purchase products as well, but again, a really great way to increase the AOV. So don't sleep on this if you have some logical cross sells that pair well. I will show you in the next section some other cool things you can do, but this is a really nice module that you can add to your product description page and the buy box as well. Let's have a look at this one from Space Goods. This is a great one if you're offering tiered rewards throughout the year to keep customers incentivized on the subscription. Another powerful strategy that you can deploy to offset churn and keep customers accountable. So if you see here, this is a great way to increase the take rate. They have the free gifts with your first order, which you can't get if you purchase one time. So it's increasing the incentive. And these are obviously low cost SKUs. So depending on what brand you are or what type of products you're selling, if you are selling some type of protein powder, then maybe you have some low cost SKU like a vitamin D product, which is really cheap to manufacture that you could just add to the subscription. And then that's a great way to increase the take rate as well. Another cool thing they actually have is the free gifts throughout the year. So they're showing you the tiered incentives if you're actually sticking on the subscription. We're skipping ahead again a little bit here. This is more of a churn prevention strategy, but it's also going to increase the take rate as well, because why would you not want to get onto the subscription? And if you look at clearly these strike throughs where they're highlighting the additional value that the subscription program offers, this is a really cool way to get more people to opt in as well. And then final thing here, you can actually see the 60-day money back guarantee. So they're de-risking the purchase with this risk reversal guarantee. You can have this obviously on all type of products, but I really like the way it's highlighted here when the customer actually adds it to the bag. It's just another element that you can add to de-risk that purchase. Now, if we come across to this example from the absorption company, I want to highlight a few key things. If you see here, something extremely powerful and a good way to get people onto a bigger plan up front. We mentioned previously in the last section that one of the ways to juice your LTV from subscription is to sell bigger plans, so like a quarterly plan up front. Look at the way here they talk about how you need to stay on the products for 10 weeks, or they reference this study here. So they're instantly framing it from the customer's first interaction that this is not something necessarily that you should just take on a monthly basis. Maybe a bigger commitment up front is what you need to see results. And this is very common with supplement brands where a lot of the time the customer quits or they churn on the subscription because they haven't been using the product for long enough to actually get results. So making sure that it's pervasive within the copy so that the customer actually goes in with the right expectation is a great way to not only increase take rate and get a higher average order value on the first purchase, but also to mitigate churn down the line as well. And another great call out here, you can see some of the risk reversals that we just previously mentioned, but I really like this, the way you have the buy once option here. So it frames how great the offer is, just a huge amount of value that you can add as well. So there's so many options that you can do here. Obviously, you don't want to add all of these elements at once because you need to monitor the variables, make sure when you're A/B testing that these things have an incremental improvement on not just your take rate, but overall conversion rate. There's definitely a case where you can give across too much information, but that's why we've released a service that is focused on incrementally rolling these things out and not changing too many variables at one time. Now, let us assume that someone doesn't go with these no-brainer offers, right? But they still go to the checkout and they purchase for whatever reason on a one-time purchase. I'm going to show you something super cool now as I switch my screen in the next section, like a last chance saloon to increase the take rate and get people onto the subscription. So last chance saloon, let's suppose someone actually gets through, they purchase on a one-time. This is a really cool feature from Stay AI where you can see here, it's basically just a landing page saying it's not too late to actually switch to a subscription. And you're just reiterating some of the things that you've already been over in the previous section, but just trying to tap into the fact that there might be a bit of remorse and reframing again the savings that you can have if you go on to the subscription. Really cool feature here from Recharge where you can do some cross-selling in the checkout directly. This is a great way to get the AOV up on the first purchase, as well as add obviously additional products into the customer subscription as well. So you're increasing the amount that they spend with you and the amount of products in their total subscription. So the most important take-home lesson from this section is the magic really does start in increasing your take rate in the buy box. Then you need to look at the checkout, what happens afterwards. Of course, there's things you can do with email when you are sending things like your welcome flow. You want to default to subscribe and save as much as possible and try and focus on the benefits of subscribing versus purchasing one time. But the key thing to get the take rates up is to focus on relentlessly optimizing that buy box and product description page. Can't emphasize that enough. Now let's go into the next section where I'm going to show you all the strategies that you can deploy to reduce churn, which is the second pillar on our list. The second pillar on this list is reducing churn. Now let me tell you something about churn. There are so many reasons why churn happens. Most people think it's due to price. Not true. Most of the time, it's because the customer is not actually using the product and getting results from it. And you'll see this come up sometimes in different ways. For example, a customer has too much of the product. That's usually the second most common reason they churn. Why do they have too much of the product? Because they're not being held accountable. They're not actually using it as it was intended. And if they're not using it, then obviously they're going to churn because they're not getting results. So a major focus needs to be communicating with new subscribers to make sure they're actually aware, educated, and using the product consistently, hopefully every day, to make sure that they actually get results from it. And that needs to be so prominent in all your onboarding flows, from email to SMS and even direct mail with the right touch points as well. So I'm just going to walk you through some quick email examples here. Some of this stuff is self-explanatory, so I won't spend too long on it. And then I'm going to bounce directly into the customer portal, where I think you need to put more of an emphasis on the strategy to stop people churning. So you can see here the self-explanatory things like product education, teaching them how to use the product. That's going to be key, obviously. So you can use things like blog articles, these type of walkthroughs, showing people how to use things to build a routine. That is absolutely critical. We've also ran some cool things for clients here, like you can see for Living Good Daily, where we have upcoming events. These are great if you have some type of founder who's very forward facing and there's a lot of education around the brand. For supplements, this works amazingly well, where you have live streams and you build a sort of community around the brands as well. So this can work very nicely. Running challenges as well. So I'll show you a section in a minute where you can have these digital punch cards, which is a really cool way to keep people accountable and sort of gamify the experience. In Loop subscription, they've got a feature called Streaks, which I'll show you later as well, which is really cool. And you can see here these type of quizzes, engagement-based features. So just making sure that the customer is really engaged, especially during the first 2 weeks. That is absolutely critical to get them to hit the ground running and make sure that they get results as fast as possible. After those first 2 weeks, you can obviously start to tailor down the communications. In fact, you would want to. You don't want to be emailing people relentlessly every single day, unless there's a huge amount of education that's necessary with your product. Well, that's highly unlikely. A few more examples to finish. So you can see here, just showing customers how to actually log in to their account. I think that's a key call out here as well. So not trying to hide the subscription, but being transparent, being upfront with them. You'll want to have this somewhere in the post-purchase communications as well, especially because a lot of the time you just want to give them the flexibility to change the subscription, so they can either pause, modify the cadence, or change the actual amounts they're subscribed to. This is critical. Don't just accept that they're going to churn. Give them that flexibility proactively. And you can see here, we talked about this feature before. So for DuraDry, when someone gets to a specific order milestone, you can say they've unlocked a certain gift. So this is good to include in the order upcoming emails as well, to make sure the customers are still excited about the subscription. Right, now we've covered some email examples. Let me just bounce over back to the portal and I'll show you some cool things you can do directly within there to mitigate churn. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a cancellation flow that we have for one of our clients. Now, this is your last form of defense when someone's going to cancel a subscription. Now, in a perfect world, obviously they never land on this page, but the reality is a lot of people do. I think it's something around 70% of portal visits are with intent to cancel. So this is your last line of defense to keep people. So many cool things going on here. You can see, obviously, we have the founder with the benefits page trying to just reiterate the reasons they actually subscribed. And then we have a lot of different options. So if someone is canceling for price, obviously you want to overcome that objection and cancellation reason with some type of specific incentive. So you will have an offer, maybe if it is price related. If they're canceling because they have too much stock, then obviously you would want to offer them the flexibility to change the amounts that's delivered or the delivery cadence. There's lots of things you can do here. You need to build that logic into your cancellation flow so you have multiple different paths that the customer can go down. And as I said, this is your last line of defense. So you need to be A/B testing this and making sure you update it on a regular basis. Now, critically as well, just because you save someone from canceling does not necessarily mean they're going to go on and continue the subscription. You do see a type of lag effect where people who do pause or skip a certain subscription, you think, okay, I've saved them. Yes, you've saved them, but you've not necessarily billed them again, which is what you want. So do track the downstream impact of this. It's great to save them, but unless they are still being billed and they're contributing to the monthly recurring revenue, then it doesn't count for a huge amount. So just a key call out on this specific point. You can see here, this is a benefits, so the tiered rewards page that should be visible in your subscription portal for most brands. You need to put some thought into this. What do they actually get at each part, each stage of the customer journey? So for this specific brand here, you can see they've got gifts, they've got incentives, they've got increasing incentives like laddering the discounts as well, books. You need to put some thought into this. I would recommend looking at where that drop off is in the customer journey. For most people, it's within orders 1 to 2. So focus on what's the best way to first reduce that, because by the time you get them to order 3, order 4, the churn does stabilize. And using these type of gifts, incentives, and making sure that this is very prominent in your customer portal is another great way to offset churn. Because if you are coming to order 3, for example, and you've got a really juicy incentive or a gift, then this is just a good way to offset that. So making sure that this is visible, not just in the portal, but also in your order upcoming emails and billing reminders and just your general email communications as well, is a great way to reiterate the benefits of subscribing as opposed to constantly focusing on the negative. Oh, if they receive an email, they're going to cancel. Like, focus on what you can give to customers and make that subscription experience amazing. This is one of the ways you can do that. And then final quick point on this, you can have these type of digital punch cards. I think this is from maybe Stay AI, but a lot of the softwares now have them built in. So this is just a cool way. Obviously, you can send this out to customers in their actual order as well, but just a great way to gamify the experience, make sure, again, they're accountable to the reason they actually bought. This is something they can track alongside receiving the communications from your brands every day and make sure that they actually get results for why they signed up. So there's lots of things you can do to reduce churn. You obviously want a blend of email communications, making sure you have a strong onboarding flow, making sure your billing reminders are optimized because they can spike churn. And I'm going to show you some cool stuff in a minute that you can do with them as well. But critically, making sure that the portal is well optimized, because when customers are visiting the customer portal, as I've said, give or take, it's around 70% of those visits are with intents to cancel. So making sure you have banners, making sure that you have the product adoption card, and obviously reiterating the benefits of the subscription directly on there, free gifting incentives, and then the last line of defense, the actual cancellation flow with logic built in. All critical to making sure that you reduce churn on a monthly basis. So in the final point, we are going to go into the pillar of increasing your AOV. And again, I'll show you some things you can do over email as well as directly within the customer portal for that as well. The final pillar on the list is increasing your average order value, so the amount the customers actually spend on this subscription. Now, when it comes to increasing the AOV, as I mentioned in the introduction, you need to do it tactfully and at the right time. Most people are not thinking about increasing AOV because they're just terrified to communicate with the customers who are on subscriptions altogether. Big mistake, as we pointed out during that retention curve, after someone gets to their third or fourth order, that tends to stabilize, at which point, why would you not want to try and upsell and cross-sell these customers? These are your best customers, the most likely to actually buy from you. So if you're really nervous about this, then you can set up some type of holdout testing to abstain from marketing to a certain segment and then measure the incremental increase on lifetime value over time. But just as a general rule of thumb, I just like to throw a couple of offers this cohort's way every single month as a starting point. And just to show you some obvious ones that you can start with. So this is for higher health in the order upcoming email. They are obviously showing people that they do other products. So if they're subscribed to the multivitamin, then they're introducing the probiotic, as you can see here, as well as the nighttime essentials product. So just strategically introducing them to complementary products that go with the multivitamin. Pretty self-explanatory. If we come across here to Living Good again, what I really like about this is that they are showing the stacks of savings. So you can see here, you add 2 jars, 10% off, 3 jars, 15% off. So it's just being bold in what you're offering. It's not hiding specific offers from someone because, as I said, these are your best customers. So they're likely to take you up on these type of incentives. And again, just looking at complementary product pairings. So whatever they've got, just making sure that you're going in saying, hey, this stacks very well with this product at the right time. So you can run some type of offer once a month. This is a great way to just add things to the subscription and make sure it's recurring billing as well. Final one is a plain text email. This is one of our clients, Corexico. And what we actually did for this particular brand, we just gave them the vitamin D3 plus K2 for free. And that's obviously still an experiment that's ongoing. But the theory is if you have low margin, low cost SKUs, then you can actually give these to your best customers and then hope they just renew it on the subsequent subscription. So it's a great way to introduce new products to your best customers and then hope that that increases the AOV over time as well. If you do have someone who is very founder-led and forward-facing, then as I mentioned previously, these plain text emails crush it. We had massive uptake on these emails and we've systemized the playbook for a couple of brands now, which we're running experiments on. So they get some type of offer, some gift free, like we discussed in the previous section. And then the hope is that they will go on to renew that subscription and increasing the long-term LTV. So it's just looking at things logically. What's in the customer's best interests? What are the best product pairings? When is the right time to deliver that upsell and cross-sell? Most of the time, it's after the third or fourth order when churn stabilizes. At this point, they're fair game to email the same way you would any other customer across any brand, especially a one-time purchaser. Be confident in your subscription and what you're selling and go in with your best possible offers because these are the customers most likely to take you up on them. Now, let me jump into the other section again, and I'll show you some really cool stuff that you can do with interactive emails. So we're coming to the end now of some of these strategies, but you can see here in the portal directly, if you have some type of offering, some sale going on, this is not the best example, but you get the point, right? Change the banners out dynamically based on who they appear to. So if you do have customers who are on the third or fourth order, maybe you want to highlight some limited edition drop here, give it prime real estate within that portal so you can increase the AOV there. And then obviously you would want some type of obvious cross-sells and like little widgets like this. I know this is showing the subscription details, but you would want seamless ways to just add them to the subscription when the next order is going to be processed. Now, this is something really cool. This is from Zamo, who are using AMP technology, and this is one of the best ways to increase your subscription AOV as well as reduce churn as well, believe it or not. This is a order upcoming email for Magic Minds, and you can see here, rather than be on the defensive, they've been extremely bold and they're introducing cross sells and upsells into that order upcoming email as well, which happens directly natively within the email itself. So, very powerful way there to just seamlessly add products to people's subscription because they don't even need to go to the website. So, I'll drop a note in the comment section so you can go and check out Zamo directly if it's of interest. Another example here, you can see just really frictionless way to add products to the upcoming subscription, and then they can see it directly there without going to the portal itself. Awesome way to increase AOV. And this is a great one just to leverage the tactic that we discussed in the beginning. So as mentioned, a lot of your best customers, the best way to increase LTV is to get them onto bigger commitments. So you can see here, they are upselling people onto the 3-month or 2-month box and making it very clear the price savings from upgrading. So if someone reaches that third, fourth order threshold, why would you not want to lock them into a quarterly commitment? It's just another great way to bring cash flow forward, get that long-term commitment and juice the LTV. So this is something that you can include as well for your brand. If you offer these type of quarterly or even annual plans, you can be very bullish here as well.
So that's the 3-step growth formula. I hope you found it useful. Now, obviously with time, all the software that I've covered in this video, they're constantly releasing new features, upgrading the software. So there's always new strategies and tactics that you can follow that I might have missed today. I'm happy to update this within time. If you want access to the Figma board with all the strategies that we covered, drop a comment and let me know and I'll send it to you directly. Also, let me know what type of content you would like to see next. If you think there's anything I should have covered today that could have been included, let me know and I'm happy to create more content around that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found it useful. I guarantee if you start implementing these tactics and strategies, you'll start to see an immediate return. So don't just dwell on this video, actually start putting these things into practice. Most of them don't take that long to do. I'll see you in the next video.